A millionaire laughed at a janitor's daughter until her math saved his entire company. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Kingswell Industries, catching on the polished marble floors and gleaming brass accents that made the lobby sparkle. Amelia, 9 years old and clutching her mother's hand, looked up in awe as she entered the building for the first time. Her mother, Sophia, a janitor at the company for nearly 7 years, squeezed her hand tighter, a silent warning to stay quiet and behave. Today was a rare exception. Amelia had to come along because there was no one else to watch her during Sophia's double shift. They slipped quietly into the back corridors, unnoticed by the well-dressed executives who hurried past, briefcases in hand. On the 12th floor, an emergency board meeting was already in session. The atmosphere was thick with anxiety, the air heavy with the scent of expensive cologne and impending disaster. At the head of the table, Victor Sterling, the legendary CEO and self-made millionaire, leaned forward, his fingers steepled in front of his face. He was the type of man who never missed a detail, except perhaps the ones that hid beneath layers of pride. Sophia guided Amelia to a small supply closet, whispering, "Stay here, querida. I'll be just down the hall." She closed the door softly, but Amelia, curious and unable to sit still, peeked out as voices grew louder. The conference room door had been left ajar, and from her hiding place, Amelia could see the swirl of suits and shining screens. Her gaze wandered to a whiteboard filled with numbers, charts, and formulas. Inside the room, tension mounted. Victor's voice boomed, "We are days away from losing everything. If we don't finalize the merger, Kingswell Industries is finished." His team shuffled papers and avoided his gaze. No one dared to point out the errors they secretly feared existed in the new proposal, except for one small pair of eyes, observing from the shadows. Unbeknownst to them all, a tiny detail was about to change everything. Amelia, who adored numbers more than anything, squinted at the whiteboard. Something didn't add up. She pressed her ear to the cool metal of the door, her heart beating fast. If only someone would listen to her. But she was just the janitor's daughter, unseen, unheard, and to the world outside utterly unimportant. The meeting dragged on, frustration simmering as analysts argued over projections and legal teams questioned the fine print. Victor, pacing like a lion in a cage, demanded answers. How could this happen? 2 weeks ago we were on track. Now the numbers don't match. Who's responsible? His glare swept the table, and every executive shrank a little, unwilling to risk his wrath. Sophia, mopping the hallway just outside, caught pieces of the argument and tried to focus on her work. She wished, as always, that her daughter could have a different life, a life far from these polished halls where her presence was barely tolerated. Meanwhile, Amelia's eyes were locked on the equations. Numbers had always made sense to her, and even from her hiding place, the mistake leapt out like a blinking red light. The formula they were using to value the company before the merger, it was wrong. Someone had carried over the decimals incorrectly, an error no calculator could catch without double-checking the logic. Amelia's mind raced. She wanted to shout out, but who would listen to a 9-year-old girl? She chewed her lip, watching Victor pound his fist on the table. "You!" he shouted at the CFO, who stammered, "The numbers were double-checked, sir. I swear." Victor scoffed. "Clearly you missed something vital." In that instant, Sophia opened the supply closet, finding Amelia peering out with wide eyes. "Amelia!" she whispered urgently. "I told you to stay hidden." But Amelia was trembling. "Mama, the numbers, they're wrong. They're all looking at the wrong thing." Sophia looked torn between scolding her and curiosity. She'd seen that look in her daughter's eyes before. Still, this was no place for a child's games. She hushed Amelia, but inside a seed of worry took root. Suddenly, Victor's voice echoed down the hall, louder than before. "Is anyone here competent enough to spot the problem?" he snapped. No one answered. In that moment of silence, Amelia slipped away from her mother's grip, propelled by something stronger than fear, a need to be heard just once, no matter the consequences. She pushed open the conference room door with trembling hands. The room fell into stunned silence. Every head turned toward the child standing in the doorway, her small frame dwarfed by the grandeur around her. Victor blinked, confused, then narrowed his eyes. "What is this?" he barked. "Whose child is this? Get her out of here." Amelia swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, sir, but I think you made a mistake in the formula on the board," she said softly. A ripple of laughter passed around the table. Dry, incredulous. Victor let out a sharp laugh of his own. "You think you found a mistake in our financial models? What are you, a little prodigy?" Sophia rushed in behind her daughter, mortified. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Sterling. She doesn't mean to interrupt. I'll take her right away." But Amelia didn't move. She looked up at Victor, then turned to the whiteboard, her voice shaking but firm. "You multiplied the EBITDA by the wrong adjustment factor. It's based on last quarter's performance, not projected post-merger revenue. That changes the valuation." A stunned silence followed. Victor's mocking smile faltered slightly. The CFO looked up from his tablet. "Wait, what did she just say?" he murmured, scrolling furiously through the spreadsheet. Several executives exchanged nervous glances. "She's not wrong," someone whispered. Victor's brow furrowed. "This is ridiculous. You expect me to believe a janitor's daughter has spotted something my entire team missed?" But the data spoke for itself. The CFO looked pale now. "Sir, I think she's right. If we submit this report as it is, the merger value is overstated by nearly 50 million. The room erupted into chaos. Amelia stepped back, overwhelmed by the flurry of voices, some praising her, others stunned into silence. Victor remained still, watching her with a gaze that had shifted from annoyance to something more calculating. Sophia tried to usher her daughter out again, apologizing profusely, but Victor raised a hand. "Wait." He stood slowly, walking over to Amelia. The room hushed again. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amelia," she whispered. He crouched to her level. "Amelia, do you like numbers?" She nodded. "A lot." He studied her for a long moment, then glanced up at Sophia. "You said she's your daughter?" Sophia nodded cautiously, unsure where this was going. Victor stood again and addressed the room. "This girl just saved our company from signing a catastrophic deal. If she hadn't spoken up..." He turned back to Amelia, eyes narrowed like he was seeing her for the first time. "How long have you been looking at financial models?" Amelia shrugged. "I like reading Mama's old textbooks, and I do puzzles a lot." The tension in the room had shifted. Where moments ago there had been mockery, now there was awe, and something else. Unease. Victor Sterling, a man known for his unshakable ego, was visibly rattled. He straightened his suit and faced his board. "We're going to pause the meeting," he announced, his voice tight. "Everyone step out. I want to speak with Amelia and her mother, alone." The executives hesitated, glancing at each other, then slowly filed out, some stealing second glances at the small girl who had just rewritten their fate. Sophia clutched Amelia's shoulders, protective, unsure whether they were about to be thanked or fired. When the door closed, Victor walked to the head of the table and sat, steepling his fingers again. He studied them with the same intensity he usually reserved for major investors. "Sophia," he began, his tone more measured now, "why didn't you tell me your daughter was gifted?" Sophia blinked. "Sir, she's 9. I clean floors. I never imagined..." "You didn't imagine she could read financial data better than my Harvard-educated staff," he snapped, then immediately softened. "I don't blame you. But this changes things." Amelia stood silently beside her mother, watching Victor like a wary kitten. He leaned forward. "You said you found the error because you like puzzles. Would you be willing to look at another one?" He grabbed a notepad, scribbled down another set of figures, and slid it toward her. Sophia hesitated. "She's just a child. Let her try," Victor interrupted. Amelia scanned the numbers quickly, then tapped the paper. "This one's wrong too. The trend line for revenue is based on linear growth, but your recent marketing shift moved you to an exponential curve. This prediction is too low." Victor leaned back in his chair, exhaling. Incredible. He turned his gaze to Sophia. I want her tested, properly. I'll pay for it. Tutors, psychologists, whatever she needs. This kind of mind, it's rare. Sophia's throat tightened. Why would you do that? What's in it for you? Victor's face grew serious. She saved my legacy today. And I've built my life on spotting value where no one else does. I'd be a fool not to invest in her. But there was something else behind his eyes, something unspoken. He tapped a finger against the polished table, then said, There's another reason I want to know more about her. Amelia looked up. What reason? Victor hesitated, then stood. He walked to a side drawer, pulled out a framed photo, and placed it on the table. It was of a little girl, perhaps 5, with dark curls and wide brown eyes. She looks just like you, he said quietly. My daughter. She died 6 years ago. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. I'm so sorry, she said gently, eyes locked on the photograph. The resemblance was undeniable. Same warm eyes, same arch of the brow, even the same shy tilt of the chin. Amelia looked at the picture and then at Victor, a quiet confusion forming on her face. Victor's expression had shifted, no longer the calculated stare of a CEO, but something haunted, tender. Her name was Isabel. She would have been around Amelia's age now. I lost her in a car accident. Or at least, that's what I was told. Sophia's grip on Amelia's shoulders tightened instinctively. What do you mean, told? He looked down at the photo again. Her mother and I were separated at the time. She took Isabel and left. Months later, I was told they'd both died in an accident overseas. I grieved. I tried to move on. But seeing your daughter today, it felt like I was seeing a ghost. Sophia's heart pounded. Mr. Sterling, what are you suggesting? I don't know, he said honestly. But I need to know more. Where were you living 9 years ago? Sophia hesitated. New Mexico. I was working at a hotel when I found out I was pregnant. The father left. I never told anyone who he was. Victor's eyes narrowed. You don't know who the father is. I didn't say that, she replied softly. A beat of silence passed. Amelia looked between them, sensing the tension but not understanding the depth of it. Mama, what's going on? Sophia knelt to her daughter's level. Nothing, mi amor. We're just talking. Victor's voice came low and deliberate. I want a DNA test. Sophia stood slowly. You can want a lot of things, Mr. Sterling, but my daughter is not a problem for you to solve or a mystery to unlock. She's mine. I understand, he said, though his eyes betrayed how much he didn't. But if there's even the smallest chance... Sophia turned toward the door, gently guiding Amelia with her. We came here so I could clean your floors, not to open old wounds. Victor stepped closer. If you're right, I'll walk away. No questions asked. But if I'm right, Sophia, I lost everything, and I'm not sure I can bear to lose her again. As Sophia opened the door to leave, Victor added, You saved my company today, Amelia. Whether or not you're my daughter, I owe you everything. Amelia turned back, eyes wide. Can I come again tomorrow? Sophia didn't answer, but as the elevator doors closed behind them, her eyes filled with something deeper than confusion. She was afraid. The elevator hummed quietly as it descended, the golden light inside casting a soft glow over Sophia's anxious face. Amelia stood beside her, fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. She looked up, eyes curious. Mama, why did Mr. Sterling say I looked like his daughter? Was she really gone? Sophia forced a smile, her voice trembling. Sometimes people see what they want to see, mi amor. He's hurting, that's all. But her heart was pounding. She couldn't deny the resemblance. The photo, the timing, the way Victor had looked at Amelia with something more than curiosity. It had stirred something inside her she hadn't dared revisit for nearly a decade. A night she had buried in the past, locked away with all its secrets. They exited the building and stepped into the cool afternoon air. Amelia skipped beside her, completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath her mother's composed surface. Sophia's mind raced. Should she run? Quit the job? Change cities again, like before? But she had built a life here. Amelia was thriving in school, and now this. Later that evening, in their small but tidy apartment on the east side of the city, Sophia sat at the kitchen table, staring at a worn shoebox filled with papers. She pulled out a faded envelope. No return address, just a name written in tight, precise letters. Victor Sterling. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the letter inside. It was one she had never sent. "Dear Victor," it began. "I didn't know how to tell you I was pregnant. We were both so young and you were already building your empire. I didn't want to be the girl who ruined your future." Sophia closed her eyes. She had made her choice back then, for Amelia, for herself. But now fate had thrown them all into the same room, and the truth was clawing its way out. Meanwhile, Victor sat alone in his penthouse office, the city skyline glowing behind him. He held the photo of Isabel in one hand, Amelia's name echoing in his mind like a song he couldn't silence. Everything about the girl felt familiar, her intelligence, her eyes, the way she challenged him without fear. He reached for his phone and dialed. "I need a private investigator," he said. Discreet. "I want everything you can find on Sofia Alvarez, where she's been, who she's known, especially 9 years ago in New Mexico." He hung up and leaned back, closing his eyes. If Amelia was his daughter, someone had lied to him. Stolen time he could never get back. And Victor Sterling was not a man who forgave betrayal. 3 days passed. Sophia continued her work at Kingswell Industries as if nothing had changed. She cleaned the same floors, pushed the same cart, nodded politely to the same people who still didn't know her name. But beneath her uniform, her thoughts churned. She had told Amelia nothing more. She had hoped, foolishly, that Victor might let it go. He didn't. He didn't confront her again, didn't summon her into his office. Instead, he watched. Quietly, strategically, the way a hawk circles before diving. Amelia, oblivious to it all, returned to her normal routine, though now every night she asked, "Will I see Mr. Sterling again?" Sophia always answered the same, "I don't think so, mi amor. He's a very busy man." But the lie tasted bitter every time. One evening as they arrived home, there was an envelope slipped beneath their apartment door. Sophia picked it up, frowning. No return address, just her name. Inside was a single photograph, black and white, grainy, a surveillance still. It showed Sophia in a New Mexico hospital 9 years ago, holding a newborn wrapped in a faded pink blanket. The back was marked with a typed message, "We know." Sophia sat on the couch, the photo trembling in her hands. She didn't need to guess where it came from. Victor had hired someone and they had found her past. There was a knock at the door. She jumped. Slowly, cautiously, she opened it, and there he stood. Victor Sterling, impeccably dressed, eyes darker than she remembered. He held no photo, no file, just his silence. "We need to talk," he said. Sophia hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside, Amelia sat on the floor, surrounded by her books and math puzzles. She looked up and smiled brightly. "Hi, Mr. Sterling." Victor smiled back, though it was tight, controlled. "Hi, Amelia." Sophia cleared her throat. "You can go to your room, Carino." Amelia pouted but obeyed. The door clicked shut behind her. Victor turned to Sophia. "I didn't want to do this like this," he said, holding up the photo she had just received. "But you didn't give me much choice." "You had every choice," Sophia snapped. "You could have walked away." "You should have told me," he said, voice rising. "You should have let me be part of her life." "I was protecting her," she shot back. "You were ruthless, Victor, obsessed with control. You told me once you didn't want a family to get in the way." "I was scared," he admitted, "and young. But I deserved the truth." They stood in a tense silence, years of pain stretching between them like an unspoken bridge. Finally, Victor spoke again. "I ordered the DNA test. I used a fork she touched during the meeting." Sophia's face paled. "The results came back this morning," he said. Victor's voice dropped to a whisper, as if saying it louder would crack the fragile world around them. "She's mine, Sophia. Amelia is my daughter." Sophia gripped the back of a chair, her knees threatening to give out. She had feared this moment, rehearsed it in nightmares and guilty daydreams for years, but nothing had prepared her for the finality of hearing him say it. Victor stepped closer, not aggressive but filled with a desperate urgency. "You don't understand. I buried Isabel. I cried over an empty casket. I thought I'd lost her forever. And now you're telling me. She didn't die. She lived. And I missed everything." Sophia's voice was barely audible. "I was told you didn't want her, that you said the baby would ruin your career, that you had moved on." "That's not true," Victor said, his voice breaking for the first time. "I was angry, confused, but I never said that. I never stopped wondering what if." Sophia stared at him, emotions crashing inside her. Rage, guilt, sorrow. "Do you know what it's like to raise a child alone, scrubbing floors while hiding from your past? To lie to her every time she asked where her father was?" Victor looked toward the closed door of Amelia's room. "She deserves to know me." "She deserves to be safe," Sophia shot back, "and I don't trust you with her." That cut deeper than she realized. Victor's eyes darkened. "I'm not the same man I was. Let me prove it. I'm not here to take her away. I want a chance to be in her life." Sophia crossed her arms. "What does that even mean? You show up rich and powerful and think you can rewrite the past." "I can't rewrite it," he said, "but I can stop pretending it didn't happen." There was a long silence. Then Amelia's door opened. She peeked out, sensing the weight in the air. "Mama? Is everything okay?" Sophia forced a smile. "Yes, baby. Just grown-up stuff." Victor crouched down to her level, careful not to scare her. "Hey, Amelia, can I ask you something?" She nodded, curious. "If I said I wanted to spend more time with you, maybe take you to museums or help with your math, would that be okay?" Amelia looked up at her mother, then back at Victor. "You mean like a tutor?" He smiled softly. "Something like that." She beamed. "Okay, I like you." Sophia felt her heart ache, the innocence in Amelia's eyes, the danger of hope. Victor stood slowly, turning to Sophia one last time. "Let me in, Sophia. For her." Sophia didn't answer, but something had shifted, something irreversible. That night Sophia barely slept. She sat on the edge of her bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft rhythm of Amelia's breathing in the next room. Her daughter had accepted Victor with the same open heart she gave to everyone, but Sophia knew better. She had seen what ambition could do to a man like him, how it devoured weakness, how it left no room for vulnerability. Still, something in his voice earlier, the crack, the honesty, it haunted her. By morning, Victor's presence had already begun to ripple through their lives. Flowers arrived at their apartment with a note for Amelia. "Keep solving puzzles. I'm proud of you. V." A new set of math books followed, wrapped in gold ribbon. Sophia wanted to refuse it all, but Amelia was glowing, her joy uncontainable. At work, it was different too. Her supervisor suddenly addressed her by name. The HR manager asked if she was comfortable with her shift hours. Even the head of security greeted her like an old friend. Victor's silent influence was shifting the air around her, building pressure she hadn't consented to. And then came the next step. At the end of the week, Victor called. "I'd like to invite you both to dinner. Somewhere quiet, just to talk. No pressure." She hesitated, but something in his tone told her this wasn't about control, it was about connection. A door opened slowly. That evening, they met at a discreet Italian restaurant tucked into a quiet corner of the city. Victor wore no tie, just a soft charcoal sweater. His usual armor of power had been stripped down, revealing something more human. Amelia talked non-stop, about math, her teacher, a puzzle she couldn't solve, and Victor listened with rapt attention, smiling, laughing. He even pulled out a pen and solved the riddle with her on a napkin. Sophia watched them from across the table, her chest tight. It felt too easy, too natural. When Amelia excused herself to the restroom, Victor leaned in. She's incredible. She's everything, Sophia replied, voice soft but firm. He nodded. And you're a remarkable mother. I mean that. Sophia wasn't sure whether to thank him or defend herself, so she did neither. What happens now? She asked instead. Victor exhaled slowly. I want to be part of her life, not just with money or gifts. I want weekends, time, a chance to build something real. And if I say no, I'll respect it, he said, though his voice was tight with pain. But I'll never stop hoping for a yes. The moment hung in the air as Amelia returned, skipping to the table, holding Victor's hand as if it had always been hers to take. Sophia's heart ached, because for the first time in years, she wasn't sure if keeping Amelia's world small was the safest thing anymore. Weeks passed, and what started as cautious meetings slowly turned into something more fluid, more familiar. Victor picked Amelia up from school once a week. They shared lunches at quiet cafes and afternoons at science museums. Sophia watched from a distance, always present, always protective, but even she couldn't deny the bond growing between them. Amelia's laughter was freer now, brighter, and Victor, he was changing. At Kingswell, rumors began to swirl. Executives whispered about the janitor's daughter who had saved the company, about how the CEO now treated the cleaning staff with a strange deference. But no one dared question it aloud, not when Victor Sterling, once untouchable and cold, now smiled more often and spent long minutes standing by the glass walls of his office, watching the horizon like a man seeing the world for the first time. Sophia remained guarded. Every day she asked herself, is this real? Can a man like Victor truly change? Or is this just the calm before the storm? Then one afternoon, Amelia came home with a paper in her hand and tears in her eyes. What happened, mi amor? Sophia asked, kneeling beside her. Amelia sniffled. My teacher said I had help with my math test. She said it was too perfect, that someone else must have done it. Sophia's stomach clenched. You told her you did it yourself, right? Amelia nodded. I told her it was just like the puzzles Mr. Sterling gives me. That name, that connection. Sophia called the school immediately, demanding a meeting. The next morning, she and Victor sat across from Amelia's teacher in a small office. The teacher looked uncomfortable. We've just never seen a student solve advanced logic problems like this, especially at her age. We had to ask questions. Victor's voice was cool but sharp. Are you implying my daughter cheated? The teacher blinked. Your daughter? The words hung in the air. Sophia glanced at Victor, heart pounding. He hadn't meant to say it, not like that. But now it was out. Now it was real. Yes, he said, softer now. She's mine. The teacher fumbled, apologizing, but Sophia was no longer listening. She watched Victor take Amelia's hand, calm and confident. Afterward, as they stood by the car, Sophia looked at him. You said it. Out loud. I did, he replied, because I feel it. She's my daughter. I can't hide that anymore. Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question she'd been dreading. What's next, Victor? He hesitated, and then he said it. I want custody, joint. I want my name on her birth certificate. Sophia's world went still. Everything she had feared was now knocking at her door. The words echoed in Sophia's mind long after they'd left Victor's lips. I want custody. The world she had carefully built, quiet, private, protected, was now tilting on its axis. She stared at him, unable to speak, a wave of cold washing through her. Victor stood firm but not cruel. I'm not trying to take her from you, he said, but I want legal recognition. I want to be her father, in every way that matters. You are her father, Sophia whispered. You don't need a judge to tell her that. But I do, he replied, for her future, her protection. What if something happens to you? Right now, I'd have no rights, no say, no way to keep her safe. Sophia looked away. That thought had haunted her in silence for years. Who would care for Amelia if she couldn't? But this wasn't how she wanted that question answered. That night, Sophia couldn't eat. She sat at the kitchen table while Amelia slept in her room, the glow of the hallway light barely reaching her hands as they held the birth certificate. Blank under father, a choice she had made out of fear, out of pride, and love. Could she now undo that? Could she share Amelia with a man she barely knew anymore, one who had wealth, power, and a past full of secrets? Meanwhile, Victor met with his lawyer. "No threats," he instructed. "No lawsuits. I want this done with respect. But I do want her name changed. I want Amelia to know she belongs to me too." His lawyer nodded slowly. "Then let's approach it carefully. Mediation, not litigation. If Ms. Alvarez agrees." But that "if" was a mountain Victor knew he'd have to climb. 2 days later, Sophia received a letter, formal but polite, a request for joint custody mediation. It came with no subpoena, no court date, just an invitation to talk. She crumpled the letter in her hand, chest tight. She hadn't told Amelia anything yet. How could she? How do you tell a child that the man she was beginning to trust wanted to rewrite the very foundation of her world? At the end of the week, Sophia finally sat her daughter down. "Mi amor, do you remember how you said Mr. Sterling was like a tutor, like a friend?" Amelia nodded, wide-eyed. "Well, he wants to be part of our family now, not just visits, something more permanent." "Like a dad?" Sophia felt her throat close. She nodded. Amelia was silent for a long time, then asked, "Does that mean I won't be your daughter anymore?" Sophia pulled her into her arms. "Never. You'll always be mine. No one can change that." But as she held her daughter close, she wondered if that promise would be enough, against a man who had everything, and now had nothing more to lose. The mediation was scheduled for the following Tuesday. It took place in a modest conference room on the 12th floor of a neutral law office. No marble floors. No power suits, just a wooden table, a mediator with kind eyes, and 2 parents on opposite sides of a complicated past. Victor arrived first, dressed in grey, no tie. He looked tired, more human than the lion Sophia had known years ago. When she entered with her attorney, their eyes met, not with anger but with weight. Years of silence pressed between them. The mediator, a woman named Dana, began gently. "We're not here to argue. We're here to explore options. What's best for Amelia, not what feels fair to either of you." Victor nodded immediately. "Agreed." Sophia kept her arms crossed. Dana continued. "Victor, your petition requests joint legal custody. What exactly do you envision that looking like?" Victor took a breath. "I want to be part of her decisions. School, healthcare, future planning. I want regular time with her, weekends, vacations, and eventually, a place in her heart as her father." Dana nodded and turned to Sophia. "And how does that sound to you?" Sophia's voice was quiet but steady. "I don't trust it, not yet. I'm afraid that what starts as visits will turn into something else, that he'll use his power to take her away from me." "I would never do that," Victor said quickly. "You say that now," Sophia replied, "but your world moves fast and mine doesn't. I've spent 9 years protecting her from chaos." Victor's jaw clenched. "And I've spent 9 years grieving a daughter I thought was dead." That hung in the air, raw and undeniable. Dana stepped in. "What about a gradual plan? Time with Amelia increases as trust builds. We can build a schedule that grows month by month." Sophia hesitated. Victor spoke softly. "She loves puzzles, Sophia. She loves math. That came from you, but maybe a little from me too. Don't shut the door before we even try." Sophia looked down at the table, torn. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded paper. She slid it across to him. It was a drawing, Amelia's, a picture of 3 stick figures holding hands beneath a bright yellow sun. One labeled Mom, one me, and the third, awkwardly but unmistakably, labeled Mr. V. Victor stared at it for a long moment. Then his voice cracked. "She already sees me as part of her world." Sophia nodded. "Maybe. But it's a world I still have to protect." Dana gently pushed forward. "Shall we try?" A 3-month transition plan. No legal filings yet. Just trust. Sophia closed her eyes for a long moment, then finally, okay. It was the first step, but peace, they would both soon learn, comes at a cost neither had yet imagined. The transition plan began quietly. Weekends at the city park, Sunday afternoons in the public library, Wednesday calls after homework. Victor followed every rule, never pushed, never tried to buy affection with gifts or promises. And slowly, Sophia found herself watching with less fear. One Saturday they visited the planetarium. Victor arrived early, coffee in hand, and waited on the bench outside their apartment. Amelia ran to him, clutching a drawing of Jupiter's moons she had made just for him. He kneeled and smiled. "Which one's your favorite?" She pointed. "Europa, because it might have an ocean under the ice. That's a secret world." Victor looked at her, soft-eyed. "Like you." Sophia watched this moment unfold from the doorway. A pang of something unfamiliar stirred in her, longing, not for him, for the ease her daughter now seemed to feel in his presence. But just as things began to settle, life delivered another blow. A letter arrived from Victor's attorney, not about custody, about inheritance. Victor had begun the process to name Amelia as his legal heir, not just part of his estate, but the primary beneficiary, a legacy worth tens of millions. Sophia's hands shook as she read it. She hadn't asked for this, hadn't wanted this. When she confronted him at their next meeting, her voice trembled. "You're giving her your name, your fortune. What are you doing, Victor?" He was calm. "I'm giving her what she deserves." "You're giving her a target," Sophia snapped. "You think money won't change how people see her, treat her. This isn't just about love, it's about power." Victor nodded. "Yes, because the world doesn't protect little girls who grow up cleaning offices, but it does protect my name, my legacy." Sophia stepped back, tears stinging her eyes. "And what if you change your mind? What if you get bored, find someone new?" "I would never." She folded the letter in half. "You don't get to rewrite history, Victor. She's not your redemption story." He looked wounded. "She's not. She's my daughter." That night, Sophia couldn't sleep. She sat on the couch, staring at a baby photo of Amelia, the one taken the day she was born, wrapped in hospital linen, eyes wide and silent. She had raised her with nothing but grit and love. Now a man who had once walked away from them both was writing her future with a pen of gold. And Sophia wasn't sure if she was being rescued, replaced, or erased. The days that followed were tense, shadowed by uncertainty. Amelia remained blissfully unaware, caught between math competitions and dreams of becoming an astronaut. But Sophia and Victor moved carefully around one another, like two planets caught in gravitational pull, unable to collide, unable to let go. Then came the gala. Kingswell Industries was celebrating its 100th anniversary, and Victor, as CEO, insisted on attending with Amelia by his side. "She's part of the reason we're still standing," he told Sophia. "This is about showing her she belongs." Sophia hesitated. "She's 9. A gala isn't a playground. She'll wear her own little suit. There'll be no press, just staff and families. Let her see what she saved," Amelia begged. Sophia relented. The night arrived. Victor arrived at their apartment in a sleek black car. Amelia ran out in a dark blue dress with white lace cuffs, holding Sophia's hand until the last moment. "You look beautiful," Victor whispered as she climbed in. "You too," he added quietly to Sophia, who wore her hair pinned back and borrowed earrings. The venue glittered with chandeliers and soft music. Executives toasted, servers weaved between tables, and conversations buzzed with polite admiration. But when Victor entered with Sophia and Amelia, the room hushed. All eyes turned. Whispers began. That's the janitor, isn't it? And the little girl, she's the one from the boardroom story, right?" Victor ignored it all. He placed a hand on Amelia's back and guided her through the crowd like royalty. At the head table, he lifted his glass. "I'd like to propose a toast," he announced. To the most brilliant mind in this company. She's only 9, she's sitting right here, and she's my daughter. Gasps, murmurs. Someone dropped a fork. Sophia's heart stopped. Amelia blinked. "You mean for real?" she whispered. Victor crouched beside her, eyes bright. For real. A tear slid down Sophia's cheek. The room clapped, unsure, awkward, some with real warmth, others with veiled judgment. Afterward, Sophia pulled Victor aside, voice low and furious. "You had no right." "She deserved to know," he said. "Not like that. Not in front of everyone like she's your trophy. She's our daughter, Sophia. You don't get to say that after stealing the moment I should have had with her." Victor stepped back, guilt flashing in his eyes. "I didn't mean to take it. I wanted her to feel proud." "She already was," Sophia snapped. "She didn't need a crowd for that." They stood in silence as Amelia twirled nearby, laughing in the light of a chandelier. Victor looked at her, then back at Sophia. "I think I'm losing you again." "You never had me," she replied, but her voice cracked. The gala changed everything. In the days that followed, Sophia noticed subtle shifts in Amelia, questions she hadn't asked before, silences that lingered a little too long. One night, as they lay in bed together, Amelia whispered, "Why didn't you ever tell me he was my dad?" Sophia closed her eyes. "Because I wanted to wait until you were ready. Until I was ready." "But I was ready," Amelia said. "I am." Sophia held her tighter, her heart breaking a little more with each word. The truth was, she didn't know if she'd ever be ready. Not to share her daughter, not to let go of the world they'd built alone. Meanwhile, Victor had grown quiet. No grand gestures, no more surprise visits. He stayed at a respectful distance, waiting for a sign, for forgiveness, for something he couldn't name. He sent messages to Amelia, small notes and puzzles in the mail, each more challenging than the last. But for the first time, he left Sophia alone. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, Amelia came home from school with a permission slip. A math competition, 2 states away. "They're letting me enter," she said excitedly. "But only if I have a parent chaperone. Ms. Flores can't go." Sophia's chest tightened. "I can ask for time off." Amelia bit her lip. Mr. Sterling already offered. Sophia froze. "He said only if it's okay with you." That night, Sophia sat alone on the balcony, holding the permission slip in one hand and a photo of Amelia as a baby in the other. She thought of the nights she'd rocked her to sleep, the scraped knees she had kissed, the tears she'd wiped away in silence. Every choice had been hers, every step, every risk. She had built this life alone, but maybe, just maybe, Amelia deserved more than what one person could give. The next morning, Sophia called Victor. "She wants to go, I'll let you take her." There was a pause. "Thank you. But if anything goes wrong," "I know," he said. "You don't have to say it." Before she hung up, she added, "You'll bring her home, on time, safely. I swear." The weekend of the competition, Amelia left in Victor's care for the first time. Sophia stood on the curb as the car pulled away, her daughter waving through the window, joy glowing from her face. And when the car disappeared around the corner, Sophia turned back toward the apartment. The silence inside felt enormous, but something told her that, for better or worse, this was no longer a story about what she had to protect. It was now a story about what Amelia would become. The competition was held in a sunlit auditorium nestled in the foothills of Colorado. Rows of bright-eyed children filed into numbered seats, each one clinging to calculators, pencils, and dreams. Victor sat in the audience, palms sweating, heart pounding harder than during any shareholder meeting he'd ever led. Amelia took her seat in the front row, poised and calm. She wore a simple navy dress and her lucky socks, mismatched, one with stars, one with numbers. She looked back and spotted Victor in the crowd. He gave her a small thumbs up. She beamed. Back in the city, Sophia checked her phone for the 10th time in an hour. She had said she wouldn't call, but every instinct screamed to reach out. What if Amelia forgot her lunch? What if she got scared? But then came a message. A photo. Amelia sitting at a desk with a medal around her neck, holding up a certificate twice the size of her torso. The caption read, "She won first place. She asked me to tell you first." Sophia smiled through tears. Later that evening, at a quiet restaurant in Boulder, Amelia couldn't stop talking. "There were 50 kids, Papa. One of the problems was about satellites and gravity. I solved it in 6 minutes." Victor chuckled. "You're going to end up building those satellites, you know." "I want to," she said seriously, "but I want to help people too, like Mama helps me." Victor's smile faded slightly. "You know, your Mama is the strongest person I've ever known." Amelia nodded proudly. "She is. She says being strong means doing the right thing, even when it's hard." He looked at her, stunned for a moment. "She's right." As they drove back to the hotel, the car quieted. Victor finally asked, "Amelia, do you like when we spend time like this? Just you and me?" She nodded. "Yeah, it's nice. But sometimes I think you're still learning how to be a dad." He laughed. "I think you're right." "You'll get better," she said, yawning. He looked at her, his heart aching. "I hope so." That night, after tucking her into bed, Victor stepped out onto the hotel balcony and called Sophia. "She's asleep," he said. "Did she eat?" 3 slices of pizza. Silence stretched between them. "She told me I'm still learning to be a dad," he said with a quiet laugh. "She's not wrong," Sophia replied. "I don't want to replace you, Sophia. I just want to be part of her story." Sophia hesitated, then whispered, "You already are." And for the first time in years, Victor felt something he hadn't dared hope for: forgiveness. The next morning, Victor and Amelia returned to the city. The ride home was peaceful. Amelia dozed against the car window, clutching her medal, while Victor sat beside her, watching the streets of a world he once ruled alone now take on new meaning. Sophia waited outside the apartment building. When the car pulled up, she opened the door before Victor could knock. Amelia launched herself into her arms. "Mama, I won." "I know, mi amor," Sophia whispered, kissing her forehead. "I'm so proud of you." Victor stood at a respectful distance, suitcase in hand. "She was perfect," he said. "Brave, smart, everything you raised her to be." Sophia gave a quiet nod. "Thank you for taking care of her." They stood there awkwardly for a moment until Amelia tugged Sophia's sleeve. "Can he come inside?" Victor's eyes searched Sophia's. She hesitated, then opened the door wider. Just for a bit. Inside, the apartment felt smaller than Victor remembered. The walls were lined with books, photos, warmth. It smelled of coffee and lavender and the comfort only home could provide. Amelia pulled out her puzzles to show him, laying them across the floor. Sophia stood in the kitchen pouring tea, glancing over her shoulder now and then. Victor sat on the floor beside Amelia, laughing at her riddles, genuinely enjoying every moment. He didn't check his phone once. Eventually, Sophia brought over 2 cups of tea. She handed one to Victor. Their fingers brushed briefly. "You're different now," she said quietly. He looked up. "You mean I don't act like I own the world anymore?" She almost smiled. "Something like that." They sat in silence, watching Amelia flip through a math book. Victor broke it. "I meant what I said. I'm not here to rewrite the past. I just want a future." Sophia's eyes drifted to her daughter. "And what happens when someone else enters your future, Victor? When you fall in love again, have other children? Will she still matter then?" "She'll always matter," he said firmly. "I may change. My life may change. But she's my beginning now." Sophia looked at him, searching his face. He didn't flinch, didn't lie. For the first time, she believed him. Later, as he rose to leave, Amelia hugged him tightly. "Will I see you tomorrow?" Victor glanced at Sophia. She nodded slowly. "Yes. Tomorrow." He kissed Amelia's head, whispered something only she heard, and stepped into the hallway. As the door closed, Sophia leaned against it, heart pounding. She wasn't sure when it had happened. this shift from fear to trust. But she knew one thing with certainty now. They were no longer two separate lives circling each other in pain. They were becoming a family. The next few weeks unfolded like chapters in a new story, one none of them had planned, but all were learning to write together. Sundays became family dinners, not formal, just familiar. Sophia would cook while Amelia and Victor set the table, always arguing about who folded the napkins better. Victor usually lost, and he didn't mind. Amelia began keeping a journal. On one page she'd written, "I have two homes now, but it feels like one big heart." One evening, as they sat on the couch, Amelia between them, fast asleep, Victor reached for a photo on the shelf. It was one Sophia rarely looked at, Amelia's first birthday. No father in sight, just her, a homemade cake, and a tiny girl in polka dots. "You did all of it," he said quietly. Sophia nodded. "And I'd do it again, even the hard parts." "I wish I'd been there," he said, "but I don't want to steal those years from you. I just want to earn the ones ahead." She looked at him. "You're doing that slowly." But the peace they were building wasn't without its fractures. At Kingswell, the whispers grew louder. Some of the board members didn't like the attention Victor gave to Sophia. Others didn't like that he'd changed. Softened, they called it. Unfocused. There were murmurs of shareholders growing nervous. Some wanted him replaced. One morning, Victor received an anonymous memo slipped under his office door. It read, "Family makes men weak. Kingswell needs strength." He burned the note without comment, but it stayed in his mind. The next board meeting was tense. Victor defended a new initiative focused on education and mentorship, one inspired by Amelia's story. The CFO pushed back. "That's not our business model." Victor replied calmly, "It is now." After the meeting, his longtime legal advisor pulled him aside. "There's talk of a vote, unofficial but serious. You've made enemies." Victor straightened his tie. "Let them come." That night, over dinner, he said nothing to Sophia and Amelia about the company. He didn't want their world shadowed by his. But Sophia could sense something. "You're quiet," she said after Amelia went to bed. He nodded. "I might be forced out. From the company." She froze. "Because of us?" "Because of me," he corrected. "Because I changed." She reached for his hand. "Maybe that's not losing, maybe it's becoming." He looked at her. Truly looked. "I think I'm falling in love with the life I never thought I deserved." Her grip tightened. "Then don't run from it." And just like that, the man who once had everything but nothing real knew he was finally standing at the beginning of something true. The board didn't wait long. A week after that tense meeting, Victor received official notice. An emergency vote had been scheduled. The topic? Leadership transition. A diplomatic way to say, "You're being ousted." Sophia found him in the park that afternoon, sitting on a bench, staring at the duck pond where he and Amelia often fed breadcrumbs to the birds. He didn't look angry, just tired. "They're going to take it," he said. "Everything I built." Sophia sat beside him, silent for a moment. Then, "But they can't take what matters." He glanced sideways at her, managing a faint smile. "You always say the simple things that mean the most." She shrugged. "It's all I've got." Victor turned his eyes to the water again. "You know, when I started Kingswell, I thought power would protect me, that if I climbed high enough, I'd never fall. But I never realized how much it cost to stay up there. And now?" she asked softly. "I'd rather fall," he said, "if it means I get to land somewhere that feels like home." That night, he drafted a letter. It wasn't defensive, it wasn't angry, it was graceful. He addressed the board with clarity and purpose, outlining his transition plan and his final proposal, a permanent mentorship program in Amelia's name, the Alvarez Initiative, for underprivileged children with talents in math and science. He submitted his resignation, effective in 30 days. The next morning, Sophia received a copy of the letter. She read it twice. Then she cried. That evening, Victor came over for dinner. He was quiet through most of the meal until Amelia asked, "Are you sad, Papa?" He paused. "A little. But you always told me the right answer isn't always the easy one." He chuckled. "Did I?" She nodded. "And this was the right one, right?" He reached over and brushed her hair back. "Yes, it was." Later, after Amelia was asleep, Sophia poured him a glass of wine and joined him on the balcony. "You did it," she said. "I lost everything," he replied. "No," she said. "You chose something. There's a difference." He looked at her then, not as a man accustomed to conquest, but as someone finally brave enough to surrender to the truth. "I think I've loved you for a long time, Sophia," he said, barely above a whisper, "even when I didn't know how." Sophia's breath caught, but she didn't pull away. "Then maybe," she whispered back, "we're both just learning how to begin again." The city lights shimmered around them, and for once the silence between them didn't feel heavy. It felt like peace. A month later, Victor's office stood empty. The nameplate was gone. His desk, once cluttered with plans and contracts, had been cleared, leaving only a single photo frame behind. Amelia, mid-laugh, a pencil tucked behind her ear, and numbers scrawled across a whiteboard behind her. He left it there intentionally, a quiet legacy. The company moved on without him. A new CEO was appointed. The board breathed easier, but whispers of regret lingered. Clients missed Victor's instinct. Employees missed his newfound warmth. And the Alvarez initiative he'd proposed, it was approved unanimously, now a permanent part of Kingswell's outreach program. Victor, however, didn't linger in that world. He poured his energy into something entirely new, a non-profit dedicated to nurturing young mathematicians from underprivileged communities. He called it Amelia's Equation. Sophia and Amelia stood by his side on opening day. Amelia wore her medal. Sophia wore the smallest of smiles. The media was there, but Victor didn't care. He didn't pose for power. He posed for memory. That night, after the celebration, the three of them returned home together, not just to Sophia's apartment, but to a new place, one they'd found together. A quiet two-bedroom home with warm lighting, shelves full of books, and a piano. Victor couldn't play, but insisted belonged in the corner. As they unpacked boxes, Amelia found a folder labeled "Letters I Never Sent." She opened it, curious. Inside was a letter, old, creased, written in her mother's handwriting. "Dear Victor, I didn't know how to tell you I was pregnant. I was afraid of what you'd say, of what I'd become. But most of all, I was afraid you'd look at her and not love her the way I already do." Amelia looked up. "You wrote this?" Sophia froze. "Yes, a long time ago. Why didn't you send it?" "Because I didn't believe in us. Not back then." Victor stepped in quietly. "But you do now?" Sophia looked at both of them, her daughter full of questions and the man she once ran from, now standing steady in her life. "I do," she said. Amelia held the letter to her chest. "Can I keep it?" Sophia nodded. "It's yours. All of this is." They finished unpacking in the glow of late evening. Laughter echoed through the house. No longer three lives stitched by coincidence, but a family, real and whole. That night, as Victor tucked Amelia into bed, she whispered, "What's my last name now?" He paused. "Whatever you want it to be." She smiled sleepily. "I think I want both." And in that quiet moment, between name and choice, the past and the future finally stood side by side, together. Spring brought with it more than sunlight and blossoms. It brought stability, the kind Sophia never thought she'd have. Their new home settled into a rhythm that felt sacred: school drop-offs, puzzle nights, weekend visits to bookstores. Victor took up cooking, disastrously at first, but Amelia insisted his spaghetti was better than the fancy restaurants. One Saturday morning, Sophia woke up to the sound of laughter from the kitchen. She padded out in slippers to find Victor and Amelia kneading dough with flour in their hair and grins on their faces. "Donuts," Victor announced proudly. We're attempting donuts. Sophia raised an eyebrow. Are we insured for this? Amelia giggled. I'm the supervisor. He's just the assistant. Obviously, Victor replied, handing Sophia a warm cup of coffee. It wasn't a perfect life, but it was full of something rarer. Truth. Every corner of their new world had been earned, scarred into shape by mistakes and courage. But peace, as they had learned, is always temporary. One afternoon, a certified letter arrived in their mailbox. It was addressed to Victor, but Sophia opened it first, an old habit from the days when she alone handled every detail of their lives. As she read it, her breath caught. The letter was from a woman named Evelyn Crane, a former Kingswell board member and longtime rival of Victor's. She had launched a formal challenge against the Alvarez initiative, claiming it misused company funds and was a vanity project born of nepotism. Worse, she had filed to investigate Victor's sudden resignation, implying unethical behavior linked to his discovery of Amelia's identity. Victor read the letter silently, jaw tight, then folded it slowly. I knew someone would come after us, he said, but I didn't expect it from her. Sophia placed a hand on his. What do we do? Victor looked at Amelia, who was busy drawing constellations on the back of a cereal box. We fight, the right way. No more secrets, no more shame. They contacted a lawyer that afternoon. Together they compiled every record, every approval, every signed document proving the legitimacy of the initiative. Victor refused to use his past influence. If we win, he said, we win clean. Amelia, sensing the tension but not the full story, asked, Are we in trouble? Sophia knelt beside her. No, Carino, but sometimes doing the right thing makes powerful people uncomfortable. Amelia nodded seriously. Then we'll show them. With math and kindness. Victor smiled at that. That's my girl. As the legal case moved forward, reporters began sniffing around. Headlines surfaced. CEO turned philanthropist faces scrutiny, and is the golden girl of Kingswell a real prodigy? Victor wanted to protect Amelia from the noise, but she had already seen the headlines, and she had a plan. Amelia's plan began with a simple idea, one that only a 9-year-old could believe might work. Tell the truth, out loud, all at once. She suggested it at dinner between bites of rice and beans. Victor and Sophia exchanged glances. Sweetheart, Sophia said gently, the truth doesn't always change what people want to believe. But it's all we have, Amelia replied. What if we make a video, not fancy, just us? You, Mama, me, we explain everything. No lawyers, no big words, just us. Victor leaned back, his mind ticking. You want us to go public? Amelia nodded. People are talking about us like we're bad, but we're not. If they see us, really see us, they might stop being afraid of us. It was naive, it was risky, it was brilliant. 2 days later, they filmed it in their living room, a simple camera, one microphone, no edits. Sophia spoke first, her voice calm, steady. My name is Sophia Alvarez. For most of my life, I was a janitor. I raised my daughter alone. I didn't have much, but I had love, and I had Amelia. Victor followed. I'm Victor Sterling. I founded Kingswell Industries. I made a lot of mistakes. But the worst one was walking away from someone I should have protected. I didn't know, but now that I do, I'm here, for good. Then Amelia sat between them. I like math. I like puzzles. I like that I got to help fix something big. But I don't want to be famous. I just want to help other kids who love numbers like I do. That's why we made the Alvarez initiative. It's not about me. It's about them. They ended the video together, simply, this is our family. This is our truth. Victor uploaded the video to the nonprofit's website. He didn't promote it, no press release, just a quiet link posted under the headline, You Deserve to Know. By morning, the video had 200,000 views. By afternoon, 1 million. Comments flooded in. This is the kind of story we need. She's a genius, but more than that, she's kind. How did we ever think this was a scandal? Major news outlets picked it up, but more importantly, so did the public. What had begun as whispers of suspicion turned into waves of support. Donations to the Alvarez initiative soared. Parents sent messages asking how to enroll their kids. Teachers asked for curriculum guides. One school offered to name a new wing after Amelia. Then came the letter from Evelyn Crane. It was brief. 2 sentences. I withdraw my complaint. The girl is the real deal. You win. Sophia stared at the page, stunned. That's it? Victor grinned. No, that's everything. And just like that, the storm passed. Not because they had money, not because they had lawyers, because they had told the truth. Together. With the storm behind them, the air around the family felt different, lighter somehow, as if the weight they had all carried in different forms had finally lifted. Amelia returned to school to a hero's welcome. Her classmates had seen the video. Some had cried. Others had made her a banner that read, "You made us believe in smart girls." Her teacher, the same one who had once doubted her, gave her a quiet apology and a brand new copy of A Wrinkle in Time. Amelia told her mother that night, "It feels nice to be seen." Sophia smiled, brushing her daughter's hair. "You were always seen, mi amor. Some people just took longer to open their eyes." As the months passed, Victor transformed again, this time not out of guilt or loss, but out of choice. He declined all offers to return to corporate life. Instead, he traveled with Amelia to math fairs, mentored kids from neighborhoods he once drove past without noticing, and spent evenings cooking badly but enthusiastically. One night, during dinner, he looked at Sophia across the table. "We've been living as a family for months now, but I want to make it official." Sophia blinked. "Official how?" Victor took out a simple silver ring and placed it on the table. Amelia gasped. "Are you proposing?" Victor laughed. "Only if she says yes." Sophia stared at the ring, then at Victor. "This isn't about fixing the past, is it?" He shook his head. "No, it's about building something new, something real." She glanced at Amelia, whose hands were clasped in hope, her eyes wide. Sophia smiled. "Okay," Amelia screamed. "We're getting married!" Later that night, after the hugs and tears and ice cream had faded into soft music and dishes being put away, Sophia stood on the balcony beside Victor. "You know what scares me," she said. "What?" "That this might actually last." Victor put his arm around her. "It will, not because we deserve it or because we earned it, but because we finally stopped running from it." In the following weeks, preparations began, not for a grand wedding, but for a celebration. Simple, personal. Sophia wanted it in the community garden where Amelia had once learned to count flowers. Victor agreed, saying, "The only aisle I care about is the one that leads to you." Invitations were sent to friends, neighbors, mentors, and the children from the Alvarez initiative. The theme, numbers and new beginnings. The night before the wedding, Amelia placed her medal, her drawing of Europa, and the first math puzzle Victor had ever given her into a small wooden box. She buried it under the garden's biggest tree. When Sophia asked her why, she said, "Because every story deserves a time capsule." Sophia hugged her daughter tight. Because deep down they both knew, this wasn't just an ending. It was the start of something even greater. The wedding day dawned with golden light stretching across the city skyline. The community garden, usually quiet and filled with the soft hum of bees and the rustle of leaves, had been transformed into something magical. Strings of lights danced between trees, white chairs lined the winding path, and everywhere, notes, numbers, equations. Little touches of Amelia's world woven into Sophia's and Victor's. Amelia wore a white dress with a sash that read, "Mathemagician of Honor." She'd made it herself. Victor stood under an arch made of books and sunflowers, nervously adjusting his cuffs, not out of fear, but out of awe. Sophia hadn't arrived yet, and already he felt like he was standing inside a dream. The music began. Amelia walked first, holding a bouquet of daisies and a notepad, just in case a math idea struck mid-ceremony. Behind her, Sophia appeared, glowing in a simple dress that caught the light like a memory come to life. Her eyes found Victor's instantly. He forgot how to breathe. As she walked toward him, the garden fell silent, not just from quiet reverence, but from the weight of the moment. Every struggle, every heartbreak, every unanswered letter, every unsent truth, they were all present, but they no longer had power. They had shaped the road that led here, and now they were simply part of the soil. The ceremony was brief, heartfelt. Their vows were written, not rehearsed. Sophia spoke first. "You taught me that strength isn't about walls. It's about letting someone in. You were my past's greatest mistake, and my future's greatest gift." Victor's voice cracked as he said his. "You gave me back my name, but more than that, you gave me purpose. You gave me a daughter. You gave me the version of myself I thought was too far gone." The officiant smiled. "By the power of love, redemption, and one very determined little girl, I now pronounce you husband and wife." They kissed, and the garden erupted in cheers. Later, at the reception, Amelia stood on a crate to give a speech. She cleared her throat seriously. "Most weddings don't involve algebra, but I think this one should, because Mama plus Papa doesn't just equal two people. It equals us, a family, and that's the best equation ever." Laughter and applause followed. As the sun set, guests danced under the lights, eating homemade cake and scribbling hopeful messages on math paper that would later be folded into origami and hung from the trees. Victor pulled Sophia into a slow dance. "You think she'll remember this?" he asked softly. Sophia nodded. "She'll remember everything." And as Amelia twirled nearby, her laughter rising into the night sky like music, they both knew. For the first time in forever, nothing was missing. Years later, a plaque stood in the garden beneath the largest tree. Weather-worn but still strong, it read, "In honor of every child who sees the world differently, Amelia's equation began here." Visitors often asked about it. Tourists, students, curious passers-by. And sometimes, if they were lucky, the woman tending the flowers nearby would tell them the story. Sophia Sterling. She never liked the spotlight, but when she spoke about that chapter of her life, her voice held warmth. "It started with a mistake on a whiteboard," she'd say, and a little girl who saw what no one else did. By then, Amelia was no longer a child. She had just turned 18 and was preparing to attend MIT on a full scholarship. She spent her last summer at home mentoring students through the initiative she had inspired and now helped run. Victor, retired from public business, ran the non-profit full-time. He still cooked Sunday dinners, still overcooked pasta, still insisted on folding the napkins wrong. Their home was full of framed puzzles, half-solved equations, and photos of the life they'd rebuilt. One evening, as the three of them sat on the porch, watching lightning bugs blink across the grass, Amelia said, "Do you ever think about how close we came to missing all of this?" Sophia looked at her. "Every day." Victor reached for both their hands. "But we didn't." Amelia smiled. "I still have that box, you know. The time capsule. From the night before your wedding." "You kept it?" Sophia asked. "I buried it again," Amelia said. "But this time it's got more inside. My medal. A letter to my future self. A copy of the first puzzle Dad gave me." Victor blinked back emotion. "That box has more truth in it than most museums." "Maybe one day someone else will find it," Amelia said, "and they'll know what we built." Sophia looked up at the stars. Maybe. But deep in her heart, she knew. The real legacy wasn't buried under a tree or etched on a plaque. It was here, in laughter, in forgiveness, in a girl who had once been invisible, and now stood at the center of a universe she had helped shape. As the night deepened and the world around them grew still, they sat together on the porch, three hearts once lost, now found. And as the wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it the distant sound of dreams taking flight, their story settled not as a fairy tale, but as a truth. Beautiful, earned, and finally complete,